there anything else you think people in your profession, as in the HR profession, should know about sales? And I mean, and selling as it relates to them potentially.
Everything. If HR wants to be respected and have a seat at the table, they need to be able to sell their value proposition really, really effectively, because it's so easy for HR to be excluded or to think that it's irrelevant from the sales conversation. And fair enough, if the business hasn't had that type of relationship with HR, you cannot expect them to just automatically embrace HR. So HR practitioners, it doesn't matter, whether you work in operations, partnering, OD, learning, whatever it is, you have to pay attention. You have to care about what's going on in your organisation. You have to know the products and services. You have to make it your business to understand what the landscape is, because even if you don't want to get intimately involved with sales per se, your people strategies will be irrelevant unless you can couch your strategies in unison with the strategy of the business and the sales strategy. So there's such an important link here for all HR practitioners, is to talk the language of business. Don't pepper it up, make it sound fluffy or best practice, whatever it is. Talk the talk of the people who are doing the job, and look at your decisions through the lens of your customer, which may well be your sales team. If you understand the pressures in which they work through, they are not going to want to spend hours and hours and hours going through policies and practices and paperwork and, pontificating about the best way of leading a team. They want real solutions in real time. So HR people have to be on their toes. They have to be able to pull this stuff out really, really quickly. They've got to have their go-to resources and they've got to nail it. And that's really agile HR, in my view. It can't be something that we talk about at next month's offsite. It's here and now. We've got to deal with this today. And if we take that sort of fear-based or panic approach, we're not actually going to be coming up with the best solutions. We're going to be, creating blockages for ourselves because we're being highly reactive. We know sometimes it's not the best solution. We have to remember that, what worked yesterday doesn't necessarily work for today.
Yeah, I think it sounds to me like they've got to be very good at solution selling. Funny about that, because that's exactly the job of salespeople, to help work with their customers and work out what can and can't be done, and be agile and pivot and those sorts of things. So you're right, that thing you mentioned earlier about being very compliance, tick the box oriented, it doesn't work here. And honestly, if we don't serve sales well, they'll find ways around it anyway. And they'll just, because if HR puts roadblocks in the way, sales will just go bugger that, and they'll find another way around it. And and they'll just then try and duck and weave so they can keep actually generating opportunity and more sales. So I think it's interesting not to fight with them, but work with people.
One of the phrases that I've even heard myself saying is that we often talk about HR as being separate to the business. HR needs to see itself as the business. And whenever we start getting into conversations about the business wants this and HR needs to respond, we've completely lost hope of working together collaboratively, because we actually see each other as opponents in some sort of fight. And that doesn't serve anybody, least of all the customer. It certainly doesn't help the bottom line. But I think there's a real reframing exercise for both HR practitioners and the business, and that's not going to happen overnight. It's a tough slog, and HR's had to reinvent itself many times before, but it's never been more dire and more important than in today's world. There is absolutely no time for contemplating. The future is here. We need to just roll with it and get with it and be part of and seen as the business.